this final segment of Community Focus presented by the Friends of MCTV, we'll hear about the Midland Community Orchestra's spring concert, which will be on Sunday, May 19th at 3 p.m. in the Bullet Creek Auditorium. The orchestra, under the direction of conductor Gina Provenzano, will premiere a piece commissioned by the orchestra with a grant from Community Wishes. It's my pleasure to welcome Catherine McMichael, the composer of A Force for Good, and Samantha Engel, the historian at the Dow Gardens. Welcome to Community Focus.
Thank you for having me.
Catherine, tell us the story of your commissioned piece, A Force for Good.
I met Gina at a concert where one of my students was actually performing. And she said, you know, I should have known about you, but I didn't. So I'd like to find a spot on a concert sometime to feature a local living composer. And so she just sort of got to work on it, and this turned out to be all the pieces fell into place for this particular project.
Now this was due to a grant that was directly for commissioning a work.
Yes.
For the Midland Community Orchestra, and the grant was from Community Wishes. Yes,
Gina handled all that end of it. I'm strictly the recipient,
okay,
and provide information as needed if they need facts or resumes or whatever.
So how did Grace A. Dow become the subject of this piece?
You know, that's a very good question. I think because she's a force for good in this community. I think Gina, being a female composer, a female conductor, I'm a female composer, I don't know. This is really not the crux of this concert, but here is this powerful woman in this community who's, although she is deceased, her philanthropies continue to do good in this community. So it just seemed to be a kind of all the pieces fell into place for this to be the topic. And it could have been, actually, the piece could have taken many directions. I toured the house with Samantha, and we looked at all sorts of things, but it really had to be about Grace and not about anything else. And it just, you know, sometimes when you're getting ready to write a piece, you're not exactly sure what you're looking for, but you know it when you find it. And seeing all of what she had done and all the good that she had done and continues to do, actually, in this area, it seemed the logical topic. So that was it.
So touring the house and with Samantha gave you a good sense of who she was, more than just reading it in a book or something.
When you go where someone lives,
right,
and it's a very homey home, you get a feel for them, I think. And of course, I'm a gardener, and she was a gardener, and of course, Dow Gardens now is the extent of all of their gardening passion. And so originally, I thought it was going to be about the gardens, but it sort of turned on a very interesting piece of furniture in the parlor, which was this Regina Polyphone music box, which plays these huge discs about like this. And I thought, now that is interesting, and it's unique, and it's revealing of a person who could do so much good and be so driven to do good, and yet have this crazy music box in her parlor and play it. And so that became, for me, the eureka idea that propelled the piece. And there were other ideas as well, but that one, you know, when you start a project, you need a foothold, and that was it for me. And then I went home and I listened to all sorts of recordings of these Regina Polyphone music boxes, which they're fantastic. They're opulent, and they're just, you know, it's like if you could put a fireworks into sound, into musical sound, that would be what it is. It's beautiful and kind of whimsical. And I thought, I'm going to start there. And that's what propelled the project itself.
So that was kind of the starting point. Tell us a bit more about the rest of the process of, you had the idea, the muse was talking to you.
Research is very important. It's very fun. It's very interesting. I love to learn about the various things I'm going to be writing about. I mean, I've written a lot of different things for many, many different people and places, and half the fun is is the research part of it. So not only did I research about the Regina Polyphone music box, but of course about Grace A. Dow and the history of Midland and then the history of the foundation. And all of those things sort of come together. I just say it's like putting stuff in the pot. You know, you just let it all simmer and something comes out. I wanted something powerful. I wanted something positive. I wanted something beautiful. And I wanted something that had a rising line. I mean, that's just for me. I like this sense of this, and so I was looking for themes that would take me there.
Well, Samantha, fill us in a bit about Grace A. Dow. Why she is such an ideal subject for Catherine's work, of course.
Yeah, sure. So Grace was born here in Midland in 1869, and she lived here virtually her entire life. Of course, she's the wife of Herbert H. Dow, founder of the Dow Chemical Company, and she really was an incredibly philanthropic individual, very caring and generous here in the community. She gave to a number of local organizations, and then in 1936 she started the Herbert H. and Grace A. Dow Foundation. She took 100 shares of Dow stock and started that, so that long after, you know, Herbert had already passed away, long after she passed away, this entity could continue to support the work that they had begun during their life. And so, of course, the foundation still exists today and continues to make an incredible impact throughout the entire state of Michigan.
Now, Catherine mentioned their home, which is the Pines. Tell us a bit about that and what, not only what Catherine saw there, but what else is there for visitors. You have tours and so on. A little bit about that and how that gives such a sense of Grace and Herbert and the rest of the family.
Yeah, sure. So the Pines is actually within Dow Gardens. If you've been through Dow Gardens, you're actually entering the back of Herbert's original property. And so once you make your way to the front, to the Main Street side, the house is there. It's a big green house built in 1899, and today it's actually a National Historic Landmark due to Herbert's contributions to the field of chemistry. And so the family lived there. It was their only home. They never had a second house after this, rented a house or a vacation home or anything else afterwards. And so you can come through and tour the house today, and it's still filled with all of their belongings. When Grace passed away in 1953, she left the house and its contents to the foundation. And so you can see the art they collected, the furniture that they had, all of the possessions that they, you know, sort of put on display where they ate dinner. And so we do tours throughout the week, as well as opening for self-guided tours the first Saturday of every month. And I think it gives such this perfect look into the things that the family valued, the way that they raised their children, their tastes, and you get a sense of also their modesty for the wealth that the Dow family comes to have. The home isn't, you know, a Ford estate, and certainly not a Biltmore or anything like that. And so it just feels lived in. It feels like a local family lived in the house, and it's just a wonderful experience.
Now, was Grace A. Dow a musician? Did she play an instrument, or was she interested in music? Was that a part of who she was?
Yeah, it seems like music was a big part of sort of the Dow family's life. They love arts and culture and all of that kind of stuff. And Grace could play the piano, and we know that her daughters all learned to play the piano, but we also know that their son Willard had a little mandolin. He had it when he was a kid. He has like little kid handwriting. He wrote his name on the inside of the case. They have, of course, the music box. Alden Dow could play the saxophone, so they all definitely had this interest in music. And at that time, it was one of the most popular entertainments. You didn't have internet and cell phones and all those things we can be distracted from, so they learned to play music.
Now, will the concert goers on May 19th, will they have an opportunity to learn more about Grace A. Dow and view some of the items from the Pines?
Yeah, so we're right now working on putting together, I guess you could call it a little mini traveling exhibit or something like that. And so we'll be set up before the concert, so as folks are arriving, they'll be able to see some of the things that Grace owned. Her shoes are always a big hit. She has fantastic shoes, so we might find a way. Yes, we might find a way to pack those up and put them on display and give people a taste of what they would experience if they joined us for a program at the Pines.
Well, Catherine, how long have you been composing, and what's your background, your history in music?
I've been playing the piano since I was about 6 years old. That's been a long time. And I went to University of Michigan. I was a piano major and a chamber music major, and I was a late bloomer when it comes to composition. I didn't start writing anything until I was 30. And my first big project actually was for the Marshall Fredericks Gallery at SVSU. In fact, I was just in the gardens just now before this interview, and there's a picture of the Leaping Gazelle, or, I mean the sculpture of the Leaping Gazelle by Marshall Fredericks, and I thought, boy, this has really come full circle. So I am I guess you'd say a task composer. I'm inspired by someone asking me to do something. And so my compositions are often very specifically directed at a person, place, thing, event, celebration. I've been really fortunate to have just about everything I've ever written performed. And I have to confess, I've never had a composition lesson or a class, but I'm completely self-taught. But I use the masters, of course, as my teachers, and also experience. You know, when you write something and it's performed, and you think, that could have been better, and it's not their fault. So you're constantly learning from having your music performed, so I'm very fortunate that way.
Well, back to the concert on May 19th. Is there an admission charge to attend the concert?
It is free. Donations are welcome, but the community is welcome, and we hope everybody brings 10 friends. And there's a reception afterwards, so there'll be plenty of good treats after the concert.
Well, the Midland Community Orchestra will present their spring concert on Sunday, May 19th at 3 p.m. in the Bullet Creek Auditorium. The orchestra will be accompanied in the opening piece by the Camerata Singers. That's a part of the center stage choirs from the Midland Center for the Arts. And the program will feature Catherine McMichael's composition, A Force for Good. Details can be found on the orchestra's website, which is www.midlandcommunityorchestra.com. Well, Catherine and Samantha, thank you for joining us and giving us some details about the Midland Community Orchestra Spring Concert. We're glad that you joined us for the May installment of Community Focus. You've learned about some useful, informative, and educational activities that we can all look forward to in Midland in the coming weeks. The Community Focus program is just one of many activities of the Friends of MCTV, activities that continually support and promote our local cable access television station. To join Friends of MCTV or learn more about our organization, you can like us on Facebook, email us at friendsofmctv@gmail.com, or call or visit the MCTV studio in the Grace A. Dow Memorial Library. If your club or nonprofit organization would like to join us at this table in the months to come, you can find our application online at MCTV's section of the city website, or you can visit MCTV in person to submit an application. We'd love to have you be a part of Community Focus.